All right, man, peace. So, barring a meteoric rise of other prominent NBA stars, such as Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, or Russell Westbrook, in their productivity for their teams, Mr. James Harden of the Houston Rockets has pretty much sewn up the 2017-2018 NBA regular season MVP award, which begs the question, where exactly should James Harden be ranked amongst the NBA's elite? Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
This is SportsCenter right now. James Harden did it again last night. Another 40-point game. He now has 8 this season, double any other player in the NBA. Let's show you how he got the job done last night. Take you down to South Florida. James Harden and the Rockets taking on the Heat. In the fourth quarter, just under 9 minutes to play, down by 3. The beard blows by Justice Winslow on the baseline for that slam. Game tied at 87.
Let me say this very quickly. Justice Winslow has been a major disappointment so far in the NBA. Now, I understand he came out of Duke, and most of the Dukies come into the NBA and they play like Dookie. Other than Kyrie, Grant Hill, and a couple of other players, the Duke Blue Devils are renowned for having a very strong college program and producing players who normally flub and flop in the NBA. But Justice Winslow was someone who I thought would be a little bit better than he's been.
Now, less than a minute later, same score. Harden uses a screen and then nails that three-pointer. Rockets up by 3. Just over 2 minutes to play, looking to put the game away. Harden, he drills that 3. 13 points in the fourth, 41 to finish the game. Rockets win this one 109-101.
I hope that Harden brings that same swag and flair and confidence into the playoffs this year, because the NBA playoffs for 2018 are going to be a major referendum on James Harden, particularly in light of the fact that he now has Chris Paul, future Hall of Famer, in the backcourt with him. He's not going to be able to claim that he's tired like he has in previous seasons. And the cloud of Game 6 against San Antonio in last season's playoffs are still hanging over his head. So he better be prepared.
Chris Paul talking about his teammate.
The crazy thing is everybody sees the 41 points or whatever he scored tonight, but it's the unselfish plays, the drop passes that he made to Clint, and I think it's just the spirit that our team plays with.
Just little things, and you can tell. But James and Curry, we got 2 assassins out there that wow. I mean, what they did toward the end, and every time they hit a 3, and I think that toward the end, when then Chris comes right back with a 3. It's just they can do things that are deflating to the other team.
Now back to First Take.
Well, they can do things that are deflating to the other team if the other team is not very well coached, which most NBA teams are not very well coached. And then you compound that with the fact that the majority of the talent is located on about 3 or 4 teams. So the NBA regular season, and this has been the case for a while now, is pretty much just a process that you have to get through until you get to the playoffs. Now, the good news for the NBA is that they're in a good spot, because even though there are not that many good teams, almost every team is pretty watchable. Almost every team in the NBA right now, you can count on them to compete every night. And even the bad teams have players that you can tune in and watch them and say, okay, well, that player has talent, they have potential. For example, even a team like the Phoenix Suns, they have a player that you can watch, Devin Booker, or an Aaron Gordon on Orlando. Even though I'm not going to sit down and watch an Orlando Magic game, the NBA is in good stead. But I'm looking forward to seeing how well the Houston Rockets, and particularly Mr. James Harden, are going to perform in the playoffs this season.
H-Town shutting it down, folks. James Harden scores at least 40 for the 8th time this season in a win over the Heat last night. Stephen A., how many players would you take ahead of James Harden right now?
Really difficult for me to say. I would tell you that I would think about obviously LeBron because of his overall impact. Kevin Durant is who I consider to be the second best player in the world. I don't think you teach 6'11" with a 7'6" wingspan with that handle and that marksmanship. I definitely have to take that into consideration. I look at them. I look at a guy like Kawhi Leonard, but I'm getting to a point where I'm wondering whether or not he needs to be in this conversation because he's not healthy.
No, he cannot be in the conversation, Stephen A. As you already stated, he's not healthy, which is the reason why he cannot be in the conversation. I have to see how he looks when he comes back. We've already seen how a debilitating lower body injury can take away a lot of the explosiveness in a player. We see that with Isaiah Thomas. I want to see how Kawhi Leonard looks when he finally does get back. Who knows? Maybe he's playing games with the San Antonio Spurs. I doubt it, but you never know. He is a figure who, as Shannon Sharp has noted, seems to have an implosive personality, meaning when you offend him, he's not going to show it emotionally. He's going to keep it inside, and he's going to say, okay, no problem. And on the back end, he's going to get his get back. So the Kawhi Leonard San Antonio Spurs situation is one that definitely bears watching and following.
Not to mention the fact that even though his gifts are not questionable, his level of aggression on the offensive side of the ball was an issue up until last season. And so that's the only reason I would say Kawhi Leonard is debatable.
Well, Kawhi Leonard's aggression on the offensive side of the basketball is directly correlated to the system that they run. And this is why it's hard to evaluate players against each other if you're not quite sure how to do it. For example, I had someone in the comments tell me about how Steph Curry is not, how he cannot compare to a Russell Westbrook because his assist numbers are not what a Russell Westbrook's are. Well, the Golden State Warriors, they run a completely different and disparate offensive system from the Oklahoma City Thunder, who run an offensive system a lot like the style that was ran in the 90s, where you had certain point guards who had the ball in their hands all the time and could run up big assist numbers, like a John Stockton or a Rod Strickland, guys who would average 11 and a half, 12 assists in a season because they had the ball in their hands all the time. Even up through the 2000s with a Steve Nash. But as I've stated incessantly on this channel in the past, the 2011 Dallas Mavericks changed the offensive paradigm in the NBA. And of course, also the Spurs had some influence on how modern teams play offensive basketball with constant ball movement that takes away the ability of one player to compile a high amount of assists. That's if you choose to play that offensive style. And Steve Kerr, being an acolyte of Greg Popovich, he has implemented a large component of that offensive system with the Golden State Warriors. So you cannot look at Steph Curry's assist numbers when comparing him to Russell Westbrook.
Anthony Davis, the Greek Freak, people like that you look at and you can throw them in the conversation. But I really would only say definitively there are three. You can throw Steph Curry in there because he plays the point guard, and with his shooting ability and the fact that he has to run the show the way that he runs the show, you can make a legitimate argument about that.
No, I don't think that you can make a legitimate argument. I think that you'd have to make a legitimate argument that James Harden is as good as Steph Curry, not the other way around. There's a reason why Steph Curry has 2 MVPs and he has 2 titles and he should have 3. Right now, he's sharing the spotlight with another player and he's still averaging 27 a game. If Steph Curry was playing in the Mike D'Antoni system, he would be averaging about 34 to 35 points a game right now with no problem.
Because I think he's the greatest shooter that I've ever seen. But James Harden's pretty damn close. And I'd say that James Harden could be the top 5. I'd say that he is the heir apparent to Kobe Bryant. He has officially taken over as the best 2 guard in basketball. He is my leading candidate for league MVP honors right now. He was my leading candidate last year until Russell Westbrook went ballistic the last 2 weeks of the regular season.
Well, I still think that James Harden should have won the MVP in last year's regular season. I knew that they were going to give it to Westbrook because the sports media has an infatuation, a love affair with Russell Westbrook. They've had it for the last 5 seasons. And I knew that when he did finally get or average the triple-double for the season, that they were going to give him the MVP. Add on to that, you had the Kevin Durant storyline in which the media decided that they were going to make Russell Westbrook a sympathetic figure, like a bride left at the altar. When Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles could both see that it's very, very difficult to play with a Russell Westbrook unless you have a very submissive personality. The problem with the Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook dynamic rapport is that Russell Westbrook is extremely overt. He's extremely upfront. Kevin Durant has a personality similar to a LeBron James, but a little bit more submissive, but he's not quite as submissive as a Paul George, whose personality goes much better with a Russell Westbrook. Kevin Durant, he's dealing with a lot of passive-aggressive personality issues, which is what makes Golden State in that situation so perfect for him. Because the two stars, or I should say the four stars on Golden State, they act as mirror images of each other. Right? The two light-skinned dudes happen to have the father in their life. They're both very calm and mellow. The two dark-skinned stars on the team, not to make it a color issue, I'm just noting how they mirror each other, how they contrast. The two dark-skinned dudes, they're both mama's boys. And no, that's not to say that light-skinned dudes all have their dad in their house and the dark-skinned dudes are all raised by their mother. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just contrasting and comparing how they balance each other out. All right, Draymond Green and Kevin Durant, they're both mama's boys. You see that they're both highly emotional, tend to be unstable. That was a very good environment to bring Kevin Durant into. You see how quickly he has latched on to Draymond, who has been very much of a mentor for him in regards to learning how to win and get over the hump and be mentally tough. And I will give Draymond credit for that. Even though he is a mama's boy, he is mentally tough because of the environment that he was raised in. And you compare and contrast that to the calm and placid demeanor of a Steph Curry and a Klay Thompson, as well as Steve Kerr, who, as I've stated ad infinitum on this channel, he has a background with being associated with the CIA through his father, and of course through Greg Popovich, who was trained via the CIA on how to psychologically manipulate others. Very, very good environment for KD. The tempestuous environment in Oklahoma City was not conducive to team success. And even despite all that, they still got within a game of the finals in 2016, which shows you how much talent they had. That OKC team had more talent than the Golden State Warriors, believe it or not. But it was the mental difference and the disparity in coaching and execution on the floor that made the difference.
James Harden is something special, man. And I would tell you that definitively there's four guys you take before him. He's arguably top five, definitely top six because of his scoring prowess. And if you wanted to take him out of the top six, it's only because you're bringing up his defense, because he picks and chooses when he wants to play because he has to carry so much of an offensive load.
Well, that's not an excuse anymore, Stephen A., because now he has Chris Paul. And to James Harden's credit, he's been much better offensively this season.
But as an offensive player, I would tell you top five. I just think that he's sensational. That's just where I'm at right now. But it's really difficult for me to say. I got to think about it some more, Max.
Here's my list. And I'm not going to include Kawhi Leonard because of injury. Otherwise, Kawhi would be ahead of James Harden.
Okay.
Well, you have Kawhi ahead of Kevin Durant. Kawhi is great, but he has not played well enough for long enough to be put ahead of Kevin Durant. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Number one is
fair.
LeBron
That's
James. Number two, without Kawhi, is Kevin Durant. Number three is Anthony Davis. Those are all three, and if you included Kawhi, it'd be four, players with size, two-way players with size, whose offense, all of their offense is at least as good as Harden, and their defense is a world apart. Now, when I say their offense is as good as Harden, Harden's offense is great. I love Harden's offense. But two things. D'Antoni's system helps him, not only because playing with a great offensive coach makes your offense better and allows you to be the full version of yourself, but also because the pace and style and usage in D'Antoni's system inflates numbers.
I agree. And just to give my list, I have LeBron number one by a nose, by a hair, over Kevin Durant. And then KD. After that will be Steph Curry. After that would be Anthony Davis because Kawhi is out, or I would probably have Kawhi over Anthony Davis. If this is based on the level of proficiency that he had last season prior to hurting his thigh or his knee. Then, of course, Anthony Davis. After that, I would put James Harden there, but just a smidgen above Kyrie, because Kyrie has shown this season that he can be a prime mover. He's already won a championship. He's already played at an MVP level in the finals. James Harden has not shown that in the playoffs, that he can be the player that Kyrie has shown. But I will put James Harden by a hair over Kyrie. And that's only because this is Kyrie's first season really leading a team. I give James Harden credit and equity for leading a team for the past 4 years, or how many years he's been in Houston. So I give him just a hair over Kyrie. And I have Kyrie over Russell Westbrook by a very slim margin. But I will put Russell Westbrook next. That'd be my list.
And so Harden, as great offensively as he is, his numbers are a little bit inflated because he plays for D'Antoni. So the three guys that I mentioned, four if Kawhi, right? And then it comes down to, so is he in the top five, James Harden? The Greek Freak, I'm not going to put ahead of Harden yet, only because in spite of playing with other...
Oh, yeah. I neglected to mention the Greek Freak. I'll put him right after Westbrook.
Other good players, he has not yet led his team to be a dominant team. So I'm not going to put him, although I suspect any day now the Greek Freak will pass him. Steph Curry I am putting ahead of Harden, definitively. Because Steph Curry, because of Kevin Durant and the way he's used, his greatness is now obscured a little bit.
I agree. And beyond that, Steph Curry, he takes far too much criticism for his defense. Oh, they hide him on defense. They don't have to hide Steph Curry anywhere. Steph Curry, as the best point guard in the league, the best player at his position in the league, he torches most of these guys every time he faces them. But if a John Wall scores 30 on him or Russell Westbrook gets him for 35, Curry is the worst defender in the league. But if he scores 45 on Westbrook, nobody talks about how bad Westbrook's defense is. If you look at Steph Curry's defensive metrics, he is not a bad defender. He has to guard the toughest position in the NBA. For the most part, Klay Thompson guards the point guards, but Steph Curry also gets his turn on the point guards, and Klay Thompson will oftentimes be switched onto those point guards once they get hot. When you watch the Golden State Celtics game from a couple of Saturdays ago, Steph Curry spent a large amount of time guarding Kyrie, or trying to. Just like Kyrie spent a large amount of the game trying to guard Steph, and Steph won that matchup.
Bit, and Steph is a willing defender, which oftentimes James Harden is not.
Agreed.
I want to say something about Harden, Stephen A. So I have Harden at best 5, maybe 6 if Kawhi's healthy, and the Greek Freak will put him at 7 soon. Quickly, I'm a little suspicious of James Harden in the playoffs and ranking him higher than that, than I rank him, because of athletic ability. Now, I think that's one of the reasons he hasn't done well in the playoffs. Let me tell you what I mean. The one thing that Harden does in a superior way athletically to most of the other players is decelerate. He can stop on a dime, change direction, those sorts of things. But to me, that's the equivalent in baseball of having a great changeup, of changing speeds and hitting spots. And those kind of pitchers, because they don't have the blazing fastball or curveball or out pitch that you can't guess on, it's just too good for you. Those kind of pitchers don't do well in the postseason.
I agree. I certainly agree with that. That's a very good analogy by Kellerman. But before he continues, let me also say that it is incumbent upon the coach of the Houston Rockets, that being Mike D'Antoni, to assist Harden, due to the fact that, as Kellerman points out so well, Harden is not a dominant athlete, meaning when you get to the playoffs and you're not facing the Phoenix Suns and the Orlando Magic and many of the other scrub teams that Harden has these 50-point, 12 assist, 10 rebound games against, when you're going against the San Antonio Spurs, or you're going against the Oklahoma City Thunder, or later on the Golden State Warriors in a 7-game series, and they have a chance to game plan for you, and you're shooting 11 for 31, it's incumbent upon a coach like Mike D'Antoni to design some plays for him, some intricacies in the offense that can make Harden's job easier, to where where he does not always feel like he has to beat his man one-on-one in order to get his shot off. That makes the offense very predictable. That makes him very predictable, and that leads to more inefficiency.
For example, Trevor Hoffman was not Mariano Rivera. Greg Maddux was not Sandy Koufax. And James Harden isn't LeBron James. He's not the fastest. He doesn't jump the highest. He's not the best shooter, right? He's doing it on guile, intelligence, and his ability to change speeds. That does not play under pressure the way size, strength, speed does if similarly skilled.
Well, the thing that plays best under pressure is basketball IQ. And that, to me, is where James Harden is lacking. That's why he has games where he has 11 turnovers in a game in the playoffs, because his basketball IQ is not very high. But once again, that means that D'Antoni has to provide some wrinkles in the offense to help him out.
I have him at best 5th, at worst 7th.
Well, listen, I'm going to disagree with you slightly with that. Well, here's what I would say to you. The fact that he's so intelligent as a basketball player and he knows how to change speeds, I think is to his advantage. I mean, sometimes the fact that you can change speeds, it just disarms the opposition.
Sure.
And that's the equivalent of being explosive.
Well, let's be for real, Stephen A. The main reason why you're acting like you're such a huge advocate of James Harden is because you and him had a little tiff a couple of years ago, stemming all the way from 2012 when you castigated him for his poor performance in the finals against the Miami Heat. And you guys were on the outs. That's why you had that little segment where you went out to Houston and you shot the bricks at the Houston Rockets practice facility where you were throwing up all them bricks. Harden was laughing at you. That was a way for you to try to re-ingratiate yourself with him, because you know that with many of the stars of the NBA, they don't want to give you a sit down. They don't want to talk to you because you spend a lot of your time talking shit about them on your morning show. So you understood that you better make this work with Harden. You cannot piss off too many of the NBA stars, because Kevin Durant ain't fucking with you. LeBron James ain't fucking with you, Steve. All right, we know that already. And a lot of these other top players are not messing with you just off of osmosis. Steph Curry will talk to you because he'll talk to anybody. He's just like that. But you know that when you get on TV, you have to speak a kind word about a James Harden because you cannot alienate everyone.
Like a Russell Westbrook, you just did it explosive in a different way. Here's why I would give Steph Curry a slight edge over Harden. Even though Harden has the capability to spot up and just drill shots, a lot of times he's dribbling the ball and dancing on you. He's not running around without the ball, coming off screens, catching and shooting. He doesn't do that nearly as often as I would like. In today's game, the way the game has changed, and obviously being a premium towards shooting, when I look at Steph Curry, it doesn't matter whether he's dribbling, it doesn't matter whether he's spotting up, it doesn't matter whether he's moving the ball or standing still, it doesn't matter whether he's on the left side or the right side, it just doesn't matter. Whether he's off balance, whether he's set, it doesn't matter. He's that kind of marksman.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason I would give him a slight edge over Harden. But Harden is a superstar. He is the heir apparent to Kobe Bryant, and he is my leading candidate for league MVP.
Harden's a great play.
Well, right now he is the MVP. I don't even know if you have to say leading candidate, because that's to say that there are other candidates. Right now, he's way ahead. And the reason why Stephen A. keeps liking him under Kobe Bryant is because he knows that Harden is an LA boy, and he would take that as a great compliment.
Player.
Right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yep.
The bottom
Yep,
line
mine
is
too.
he's
He's
got to
the
get
MVP.
it done in the playoffs, though. Can't flame out again this year, especially with that team.
I agree. Even Molly knows what the deal is with James Harden, because that was terrible what happened to him in last year's playoffs. That really was abysmal. But anyway, as of right now, James Harden is the runaway winner or leader of the pack for the MVP award. So everything with him is going to come down to the playoffs. Him and his brother in the worship of Pan, Chris Paul. But anyway, peace.